and to see that there is in St. Louis a history of black removal that follows upon and is related to Indian removal. And removalist politics is a genocidal politics. It's a politics that of we want the land and we want the land without people. In St. Louis, it was called the white man's country. We'll call it settler colonialism or white supremacy or whatever, but they just call it the white man's country. What they meant that Missouri for the white people, and that meant no Native Americans, but also meant no black people. So what we're talking about is a white working class politics that they didn't like slavery, not because they loved black people, but because they hated slaveholders. They thought slaveholders, governed in their own interest, and they thought that the only way that white people could be equal, there was no slavery, because slavery inhibited white equality. But they didn't like free people of color because they thought free people of color competed for jobs with them, and so they wanted whites only Missouri. I kind of learned from that, following up from the history of Native American removal in Missouri and in the West. And then I started to see the history of the African American history, the anti Black history of St. Louis, as one that's a series of removals, of driving people out of East St. Louis. At every step of the way, there was a different strategy for trying to make money off of them. Whether it's a dual labor market in East St. Louis where you can pay blacks less, and so you put them in crappy jobs, or segregated housing, so where you can charge blacks more for rent because they can only live in certain parts of the city, or Pruitt-Igoe, where they have, basically the police are controlling people in unbelievably violent ways in North St. Louis, but they're also setting up databases. They're pioneering these new kinds of strategies for policing. Sociologists are in there doing all kinds of research. You got the Army testing, like literally testing radiological weapons on black people in the Pruitt-Igoe housing project, all the way up to Ferguson, where they start, it's the current model of exploitation is the one that's focused on for-profit policing, payday loans, and really finally in mass incarceration, taking black and also Native people, and also, eventually working class white people, and locking them all up in order to accomplish economic development in rural America. So, that was the kind of set of connections that I started to see